Welcome to the Manuchehri podcast. Over the last 30 years, it has been my joy to assist humanity in aligning with their magnificence so they may heal, discover their natural gifts, and communicate with loved ones living on the other side. May you also experience delight while we dance in the powerful, intuitive world of energy. Let's get going. Welcome to our Energy Meets the Divine. Today on my podcast, one of the funnest things in the world, anyways, to have a podcast, if you ever get inspired to do so. Not only because you get to talk about cool and interesting things that inspire you, but on occasion, I get to interview people who I believe are standing on the leading edge of thought. So I love to bring people onto the podcast who I believe have natural gifts and talents in the multisensory world, have elevated aspects of consciousness, and also love to teach and share through their writing, through their courses, through their sessions. I think that's critical and really important. And today, I have the joy and pleasure of interviewing Julie Ryan. And Julie Ryan and I met on her podcast a few months ago, and we instantly clicked. Like, I wanted to jump on a plane and fly to Georgia and have lunch with her. Is it Georgia?
Alabama.
Alabama. Okay, the South. I wanted to jump on the plane and go have lunch with Julie after spending like 5 minutes with her. We haven't done that yet.
No, we need to do that.
We do need to do that.
Yeah.
So as we explore Julie and all of her amazing work and all the beauty that she brings to earth so that we can help humans expand consciously, so we can help the collective to raise their vibration and see and hear and know things differently, I want to share a little bit about Julie. And I loved learning about you too, and I was on your podcast. We have a lot in common. We truly do. So Julie is a psychic medium and medical intuitive. I know. She can sense the medical conditions and illnesses of persons, animals too, by the way, can facilitate energetic healing, can see energetic fields, and can communicate with spirits both alive and dead. She can communicate and connect with past lives. Really, she is your one-stop shop network psychic person, which is really the best type of psychic you want. What I tell people all the time is they are contemplating psychic careers. You know, when you move into strong psychic energy, you're psychic about everything. In addition of scanning animals and people's past lives, she literally says here in her bio, a buffet of psychicness. She isn't one of the psychics that felt haunted by dead people during childhood. In other words, Julie didn't know she was an intuitive. I think your first real conscious awareness of like, this isn't going away, it's not just something that happens once in a while, was like, I think it was 1955 when the bombing in the Chicago building happened, in the federal building.
Well, I wasn't born yet in 1950.
Okay, so why did I write 1950s?
No, it was probably 19, maybe.
You're right. I mean, we're the same age.
It was like in the, I think it was
70s?
the early 90s.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't know.
Oklahoma
Oh, I
City.
wrote 95. I'm so sorry.
95.
Yeah, I wrote 1995.
Yeah.
So you have a friend who was living in Oklahoma City, not Chicago, and you had this feeling, this all of a sudden feeling as you heard about the bomb going off. And she didn't work in that building. She worked downtown, but it happened.
She worked across the street.
I know. And you just had this feeling that something terrible happened to her, you know, just something horrible. And in the book, the beautiful book, Angelic Attendants, it's a really lovely book. We'll talk more about this and how you could get your free copy. You went to your husband and said, you know, what was your friend's name again?
Patty.
And you said to your husband, something terrible happened to Patty. And he's going, no, how do you know this? Why do you know something terrible happened to Patty? And you go, I just know it. And he kind of, you know, said some not great choice words because he wanted to calm you down and hoped that you were wrong.
Right.
And as it turned out, a couple hours later, Patty had a ceiling collapse on her and had to get multiple sutures in her skull. And I think had a lot of abrasions on her back. She's very lucky to have survived such a terrible ordeal. And so that was kind of your first, like, oh my God, I'm psychic moment. Do you think?
I don't know that I realized that it was psychic, but I lived in Los Angeles at the time and she was in Oklahoma City, and I had the news on while I was getting dressed because, of course, Pacific time's 2 hours after 2 hours later than Central Time. So it happened around 10 a.m. Central Time. And I saw that and I just had this dread in my body. And I thought, oh, Patty's been injured. And we've been friends since we were 10. We
Right.
grew up together. And the funny thing too, Marie, I was just texting with her before I got on with you today.
Oh, you're
My God.
kidding.
Yeah, she's gonna.
Aw.
I'll text her after we're done. I'm gonna say, "You're not gonna
Aw.
believe this."
That's a great story, that's in your
Yeah,
book that helps people to understand because you're really an entrepreneur. You're
right.
a businesswoman. You have worked in the medical field creating medical devices. You've invented them, you've sold them around the world. Which is your favorite medical device that you invented?
I have two actually.
Ooh.
They're for orthopedic surgery, and one is for total joint surgery
Mm.
when the bones bleed post-op. Most people
Mm.
don't know that the
Great.
bones bleed post-op because they're tourniqueted. The leg or the whatever is tourniqueted in the operating room. You know all this, being with
Yes.
your background as a nurse. And so we collect the blood that the bones bleed and put it back into them so the patient gets their own whole blood back. And
Wow.
that's been on the market for 30 years. And then I invented a mat that goes in surgery when a joint is being scoped because they use copious amounts of irrigation fluid and it comes out of the knee or the hip or the shoulder and it's contaminated and it's all over the floor of the operating room and whoa, it's a mess. So I invented a mat and we called it the BASS, BASS. And BASS stands like the fish bass, but
Right.
BASS stands for the big ass suction system.
Does it
Yeah,
literally say
trademark.
that on the packaging?
It says that on the packaging.
I
And
can see people going into the clean utility room at the hospital to grab this big ass suction thing, and
exactly.
laughing their heads off.
Yeah. And some people know about the big ass ceiling fans, the big ass fan company. That's a real company. So I was testing a prototype. My team and I were testing a prototype in Nashville in this bubba of a guy who goes, lady, this is one big ass suction system. Y'all need to call this thing the BASS. And so I did.
I
And
love
I
it.
thought it was funny, and you'll appreciate this. I only had one client over the years. You've got to use the trademark in interstate shipping across the country in order for it to be valid. And we shipped it internationally too. So this guy called my customer service gals and he said, do you think this is appropriate to have on the outside of packaging? It never makes it to surgery because they take the cardboard box, they take it out of the cardboard box in receiving.
Oh, of course.
So, because you're not allowed to have cardboard in the operating room
Right.
area. So this guy, my customer service gal sent me an email and she said, I think you need to talk to this guy. So I did. And he said, do you think that's appropriate to send into a Catholic hospital? I forget the name of the hospital. And I said, well, I think it's funny. And he said, but do you think it's appropriate? I said, again, I think it's funny. And I'm thinking, what do you have, Sister Mary Holy Water unpacking cartons in the
Right.
receiving area? What's going
Right.
on? And then he burst out laughing and he said, we love it. Everybody has a copy of your label on all of their bulletin boards and all their offices. He
Aw.
said, I just needed to talk to the woman who came up with that name.
Aw. So precious. So
Yeah, it was
precious.
really cute.
So in truth, even though you are a psychic medium and a medical intuitive, you think of yourself as an entrepreneur, a businesswoman. And
Exactly.
right? And this happens to be another aspect
Right.
of all the businesses that you must have a ton of energy to be. I mean, do you have like a grand trine in fire? Do you know in
I
your
don't even know what
astrology?
that means.
So some people, when you look at their astrological chart and their natal chart, they will have a grand trine. And so a grand trine means that it's a perfect triangle. All angles are the same. And so it could be in water, it could be in earth, it could be in fire, it could be air. And so people who I know who have a ton of energy and can accomplish a lot of stuff have a grand trine in fire. And so that means you always have fire. Something's always burning for you. It's like you have this extra energy and fuel. You've even worked in the fuel industry, actually, in natural
Right.
gas.
Right. Right.
And then some people, like I have one in water, because that's the only way I could have figured out I was intuitive or a psychic, because I don't have a lot of other indicators in my chart. But a grand trine in water makes you really psychic. But a dear friend of mine is just a recently retired ER doc, but she's an artist, she's an astrologer. I mean, it's endless, the things that she does, and you remind me of her very, very much, which is exciting too, to have so many things under the hood, that work for you, and to have also a psychic connection to the world, because it makes life even more interesting, I'm sure, and vastly celebratory for you as well, to hear the heavens and to feel it and to have it be a magical part of your life.
Well, I have founded 9 companies in 5 industries, and people go, well, how's that work? I said, well, I just took the money from one and started another one because I was led to do it. I mean, I say that now. I didn't know earlier, but I have a friend who started the entrepreneur program at Southern Cal, USC, the University of Southern California. And she said, oh, all entrepreneurs have ADD. I said, that quite possibly. because
Sense, right?
we're just curious, and we see something that that can work, and then we're led. But interestingly enough, Carnegie Mellon did a study on this about 25 years ago, and they found that entrepreneurs are more risk takers.
Right. You have
Most
to be
people are more risk averse, and that's really true, because it's nuts. It's a roller coaster ride.
I can only imagine, but yes, you have to be a risk taker to be an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. You have to be willing to follow your intuition, which shouldn't be considered a risk. It's actually more accurate than logic, but for whatever reason, it's communicated as risk. So when was the time that you discovered your medical intuitive abilities? And did mediumship follow that, or what did that come first?
I was given a book called Anatomy of the Spirit
Yeah.
by a girlfriend, by Carolyn Myss. And in the book, she calls herself a medical intuitive. Now, this is 30 years ago. And I thought, what the heck's a medical intuitive? I've been in the hospital supply industry for a long time at that point, selling things, inventing things, manufacturing things to help people heal. And I thought, well, what's a medical intuitive? And so I wanted to know more. And back then, we didn't have the internet yet. So I went to a Barnes and Noble bookstore because I thought they were more likely to have more stuff on this woo-woo genre topic than even my local library. And I found a book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan, who was a former NASA physicist who parlayed very complex quantum physics principles into understandable English and utilized those for healing. So the thing that brought me in was the healing thing, because I'd been involved with that. And so I called her school after I finished her book, and I said, do you guys have anybody in my area teaching this stuff? And they said, yes. As a matter of fact, we have a recent graduate who's just opened a school. I said, great. So I met up with her, studied with her for 6 years.
Wow.
She's still my dear friend and mentor. She's in her mid-80s now, and she's just extraordinary. And I had my family and friends saying, well, why are you doing this?
I can only imagine the entrepreneur who's now in secret classes, learning about auric fields and spinning vortexes.
Yeah. And they said, well, what are you going to do with it? I said, I have no clue. I'm just interested in it. Never in a million years thinking that I'd be doing this, as a career. It is by far the most fun thing I've ever done. The other thing that's really interesting about this, Marie, is this Ask Julie Ryan business and brand with everything that I do and I teach. I don't have any business plans for it. It's the first time I've ever done a business without a business plan. I don't have measurables. It's just where I'm led. I'll have an idea and I follow it. And my friends who are business people are saying, well, what are your projections? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't have any. They said, well, why are you doing this? I said, because it's really fun. It's amazing. Yeah.
And when you're in that joyful place, it is rewarding financially as well. It's just an incredible, amazing experience to follow the bliss and the high frequency versus the algorithm of whatever modern science is recommending for a business plan.
I do have my main spirit guide. I have a fun story about him when he showed up.
Yeah.
His name's Pope Clement VI. And we elected a new pope today.
From Chicago, I believe, right?
That from Chicago, Pope Bob. His name's Robert I forget his last name, but he first American Pope in the 2000-year history of the church.
Yeah.
So Pope Clement shows up. I'm with my mentor, Susan, and she's doing a healing on me. And when she's doing a healing on me, I'm laying on a massage table. I got a blankie on and a pillow, and I'm all snuggly. And my deceased loved ones line the sides of the table. Their spirits are there and they participate in the healing. Well, this one day, this dead Pope shows up. He's got the hat on and the whole 9 yards, shepherd's rod. And I said, well, who are you? And Susan could sense him too. And I said, well, who are you? And he said, I'm Clement. And I said, oh, I went through 12 years of Catholic schools. I never heard of a Pope Clement. And he started laughing. And he said, well, I was number 6. And I said, okay, great. How may I help you? And he said, you're supposed to teach the world what happens when somebody dies. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm a businesswoman. People will think I'm nuts. And he says, yeah. Whatever, everything you've been through in your career, in your life has prepared you for this. You're supposed to teach the world what happens when somebody dies because people are so afraid of what's going to happen. And he said, it's all bastardized. It's nonsense. Everybody goes to heaven. You know it. You need to teach everybody about this. I said, okay, well, thanks, but no thanks. Thanks for stopping by, kind of a thing. So when I left, Marie, I go to the car and I just for kicks looked up on my phone, Pope Clement VI. Well, come to find out, this guy was in office during the Black Plague when
Wow.
2/3 of Europe died. And he's best known for his prayers for the dying and his prayers for the dead. And I thought, oh my word, I can't make that up. I never heard of the guy. And so here I am all those years later.
So that was kind of your introduction to, oh, and by the way, you're also a medium, and this needs to be a part of your business as well to help.
Well, no, when I started studying this stuff, I was drawn in for the medical because I was interested in the medical and the energy healing. But what I learned was once I connected with spirit, you can do it all. I'm not sure why it's all siloed. You got the mediums and the pet psychics and the past life people and the healers. And it's like you connect with spirit. It's all the same thing.
That's exactly how I feel. I
Yeah.
feel that you can do all of it, right?
Right.
Because psychic energy is psychic energy. It doesn't matter if it's
Right.
a dog, a cat, a baby, a dead person.
A
It's
tree.
reading.
Somebody
A
asked me to
tree.
scan her trees the other day.
Love
And
that.
I did. And we talked to her tree, and her tree gave us information of what was going on with it and what it needed.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what's your favorite, if you have one, healing tool?
Stem cell energy.
Ooh, why don't you tell us what that means?
Okay. I'm like a human MRI. I can see broken bones, torn ligaments, viral infections, bacterial infections, cancer, or whatever in somebody's body. So I raise my vibrational level to the level of spirit. And then I watch a laser beam come from my body and it goes to the person with whom I'm working. I never scan anybody without their permission. I think that's unethical. I think it's an invasion of their privacy. So it's like I have a big screen TV in my head and I'm looking at an X-ray or a CT scan or an MRI. And stem cell energy came in several years ago. And I used to see, like, if somebody had a diseased kidney, I'd watch a kidney transplant happen and it would emulate what I saw in the operating room. There'd be the donor patient, there'd be the recipient. The kidney would be harvested out of the donor patient. The diseased kidney would be removed. The donor kidney would be put in, all the plumbing would be hooked up, all of that. About a little less than 10 years ago, probably 7-ish years ago, I stopped seeing that, Marie, with organs, and I started seeing a mold similar to what I used in manufacturing of surgical devices, plastics molds, blow mold, injection mold, jello mold. Think of a mold for anything. And stem cell energy would go in it, light amber colored gel, had sparkles in it, of course, because it's woo-woo, gotta have sparkles. and it reminded me of Dippity Doo hair gel from the 60s and 70s. And when that first came in, I said to spirit in my head, seriously, you want me to say it looks like Dippity Doo? And I heard, yeah. And I said, why? And they said, because people your age are going to know what it is and younger people can look it up and it's funny. And I said, well, what's funny have to do with it? And they said, you're supposed to be in a state of joy and be having fun when you're doing all this stuff because it's a high vibration. It helps integrate the healing. And I'm very descriptive, and I get these crazy images in my head. I may tell somebody their elbow looks like whipped cream. I may tell somebody else there's irrigation fluid flying out the end of their toes and their foot looks like a sprinkler. All these fun things. But people say, oh my gosh, you explain body parts better than any doctor I've ever been to. And it's hilarious. Spirit's hilarious.
Spirit
So,
is loving to no end. Yeah.
yeah, and fun.
Hmm.
And so I now will see stem cell energy regenerate any body part we need. And sometimes it shows up. So I'll see a new kidney get generated, let's say a left kidney, and I'll watch the diseased kidney get removed. I'll watch all the plumbing get clamped like they do in the operating room. And I'll watch the new kidney get installed and all the plumbing hooked up. And then the clamps, are released and they check to see if it works. And I've lost count how many times it shows up on a subsequent scan. And the
Wow.
doctors are saying, what is going on with this? What? How can that be?
I love that because now even the client is getting facts that energy medicine works and that something positive is happening to their body. And I think it's wonderful that you're educating them on their anatomy and physiology because I think people need to be a part of their healing process, right? Whether they recognize it or not, that it is about them. There's something they want to learn consciously, there's something they want to experience in a multisensory fashion. Something wants to shift within their reality, and their health issue is bringing them to a new place of knowledge.
Absolutely. A couple of points on that. Number one, nobody heals anybody else. We all heal ourselves. No doctor, you know this, no medical provider, no shaman, no healer like you or like me. We all heal ourselves. And I like to use the analogy of you have a big cut in your leg and you go to the emergency room. The doctor's going to stitch it up. The doctor doesn't make your skin grow back. You make your own skin grow back. That's how this works. Furthermore, there is always 100% of the time an emotional component in place before any kind of medical condition arises 100% of the time. And that, I believe, pointing that out, and you're a master at doing that, I believe that's the most important part of a healing because we can fix body parts all day long. But if you're leaking power because you got an energy block from some emotional event,
Right.
what's the point?
Right. And that's why some people don't heal, right? Because they are leaking out their life force, and it doesn't matter what we give them. It could be challenging for them to heal their body until they learn to change their perception about something that they're unconscious about. Yeah.
Right. The thing
Fascinating.
that I see the most, and I'd love to hear your take on this, is especially with women with female kinds of cancers,
Mm,
the emotional component is always around, at least a portion of it, always around being able to receive,
mm.
because most of the time they're very good at taking care of everybody else. And yet it's hard for them to receive. And when they get cancer, they're forced to receive from their medical providers, from their family members, from their friends. And it feels really uncomfortable to them. And yet it gives them the opportunity to learn to receive.
I
Have you
couldn't
found that?
I couldn't agree more. When I look at the second chakra and that part of the body, women repress their anger there. Like,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
they're pissed because they've overgiven, they've over nurtured everyone else. They're sitting on the back of the building, not asking for anything, not doing what's in there. They have no idea what they want. They don't know what they don't want. They're so lost and they're overgiving and they're over nurturing. And so that's what makes them angry. And then that anger can turn into health issues from endometriosis to fibromyalgia to cancers. Yes. Yeah. So that's the good thing about cancer is people have to get rides to the facility. Somebody has to cook for them. Their friends, of course, are going to be concerned and send them so they do end up opening up their heart in some sort of significant way so that they can be receptive. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's a common denominator that I see. And I
Yeah.
figured you did too.
Yeah. So, what has been your most recent big surprise, if you've had one, about healing or the afterlife? Because as an intuitive, we learn a lot about the multisensory world, even beyond what we teach sometimes. It can shift us and change us. So what has been one of the biggest things that surprised you about the healing world or the afterlife for you personally?
Everything's healable. Sometimes death is the healing.
Hmm.
I get to see new methodologies and devices all the time. When spirit working through me and with me to help facilitate healing, like spirit does with you. And I see new healings all the time, and then it's kind of like it's in my bag of tricks. And then I'll have another client or somebody call into my show, and I'll watch it happen. Something that's new. And it's like with back to the stem cells versus the organ transplants. Stem cells were not part of the zeitgeist 30 years ago. People didn't know about stem cells.
Mhm.
It's just become part of the conversation in the last less than 10 years where people even know what the concept is.
And it's we're not talking about stem cell transplants, for cancer. I mean, certainly that can be a part of it. We're talking about where you could go into a practitioner's office from the medical perspective and have some stem cells retrieve from your hip that they play with and all their different machinery to separate the bloods or the fluids. And then they
Right.
inject it into your arthritic knee or something of that nature. And it's very healing. I mean, for a lot of people, it actually does physically transform. So yes, it is still new. I think a lot of people don't know about it. Not a lot of medical doctors talk about it. At least that hasn't
Mhm.
been my experience. But there are practitioners throughout the country who perform these type of procedures.
And we're very limited in America right now with stem cells. They've been used abroad for many years, and our FDA just is slow getting them approved. And I worked with them a lot because I all my inventions had to be approved, and they're just understaffed and underwhelmed
Oh,
and all
oh,
of that. So
that
it
makes
takes a
me sad.
long time.
Because I
Takes a
really
long
like the
time.
Food and Drug Administration. I like how they safeguard us. But yes, I'm annoyed too with some lack of movement, but I didn't think that they were understaffed. I'm sure that's even worse now.
When I was in the industry, there was one guy at the whole FDA that decided whether something was a medical device or not. For all those tens of thousands of employees, there was one guy. So it's just a matter of lack of manpower and overwhelm that really slows down a lot of the things. So you hear about athletes and wealthy people that will go to Germany or they'll go to Panama or they'll go to Costa Rica or someplace like that to get stem cell treatments, and they heal in a fraction of the time. It's coming here. We just got to get the FDA to approve it. And I saw lots of that in the medical industry where things would be used in Europe for 7, 8, 9, 10 years before they'd be approved here.
Right. Like one of the
And
things I've noticed from my clients who've been abroad during like a cancer diagnosis, chemo is not the first thing that they do. It's sometimes
that's
the
right.
very last thing that they do. They have
Yeah.
many other options that they utilize for their patients that actually work
Yeah.
or have a tendency to be effective, which I find
Mhm.
is fascinating.
Exactly. So back to your question about something that I've seen
Yeah.
recently that's just remarkable. When we have a tendency to go into fight or flight very quickly, what I've learned recently is that those neural pathways are laid in the brain during when a person is a fetus and then in the first 2 years of life after they're born. So if somebody's mom is upset or under stress or
Mhm.
being abused or whatever is going on, they've lost a loved one or they're moving or whatever, those neural pathways in that fetus are being laid, and it makes them really prone to react really fast if there's something that happens that's not even going to hurt them, but they're in fight or flight, causes inflammation, causes stress, causes anxiety. I mean, it's this whole symptom. So I've been seeing a healing, Marie, where a schematic of the neural pathways are laid in a mold. Let's say we were going to lay new neural pathways in your head. There would be a Marie mold there, and stem cell energy would go in the neural pathways. And it reminds me, I don't know if you remember this, but back when I was a kid, there was this kit that you could get that was called creepy crawlers. Do you
Yes.
remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you put this gel
Yeah.
into
Little
this mold
toys.
and
Yeah.
Yeah, and it looked like a cockroach or a spider or a
A
snake or
worm.
a
Yeah.
worm. Yeah, yeah. So it reminds me of that. And so there's always a vortex spinning above whatever's being generated. It's that centrifugal force that our bodies have that's generating it. And then when I take it out of the mold, out of the Marie mold, it reminds me of that rope licorice, that
Mm.
shoestring licorice, that really fine. And then I watch it get put through the skull and it lays perfectly on top of your neural
Mm.
pathways. And then
Mm.
there's a vortex spinning above.
Mm.
And what it does is it assimilates into the neural pathways and it helps the body heal that spark to go into fight or flight and
Mm.
immediately. And
Mm.
it's been really remarkable, the stories I've heard from clients where we've done that healing among lots of healings when I have them for an hour. We're looking at their pancreas and their liver and their brain pathways and stuff like that. But it's been really remarkable to see that. And that's just one example of many new healings that come in all the way. I have the standard ones. But when it comes to the stem cell energy, and I'd love your take on this, I believe what's happening is that when we learned in the fifth grade that every cell has a nucleus, and every nucleus is surrounded by cytoplasm, which is a watery gel like dippity do, and our
Ooh.
bodies have a centrifugal force in them that spins that causes the cells to divide and replicate to the tune of billions of them a day.
Right.
I believe what I'm watching in the healing in my mind's eye and describing to my client is spirit working through me and with me to help that person heal themselves in warp speed
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do what the body's doing on its own.
Yeah,
Does
so
that
you're
make sense?
increasing cellular regeneration all the
Yeah.
way down to the RNA. Really,
Yeah.
that's what's occurring, right? And
Right.
I love your words, fast, speedy, faster than the sound of,
Yeah.
yeah,
Instant. Instant.
I love it. I love it. I think it's amazing. And I think what's helping healers to become more proficient in their work is because more people believe in it now. There's more of it on the collective consciousness where it's not something that's hidden or pushed away or people are embarrassed to say where they were. I mean, I remember when my practice started, a lot of people paid in cash because they didn't want like a trail from a checkbook or a credit card.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to like go to the bank to deposit cash.
My gosh, that's
Right.
hilarious. Well, and I think too that there are more and more medical providers that are learning how to do this stuff and they're integrating it into their practices.
Right.
And I think the other thing that's happening is people get so exasperated with I've been to 10 doctors, I've gotten 10 different diagnoses, 10 different treatment plans. I still have the same symptoms. I'm at my wit's end. What the heck? I don't have anything to lose by talking to an energy healer. And that's when they come to you and they come to me
It's
a lot
true.
of the time. Yeah.
It's true. We wish they would come to us first, but it's okay if they come to us last. We're still, super happy to help them. So currently, right now, you're teaching a class on the Shift Network.
I am.
So what's the name of your course?
It's called Medical Intuition and Energy Healing. And then my class that I teach called Angelic Attendant Training starts in a couple of weeks. And I teach that twice a year. And that's the whole buffet of psychicness.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah. Really
exciting. Oh
fun.
my gosh,
Really
that's so
fun.
exciting. So what type of clients and students do you wish to attract? Do you have like a type or a feeling that you look for or that you buzz around your own body to attract certain people to your courses or to your sessions?
I really don't. I've taught people over 1,000 people now how to do woo woo. And woo, by the way, in Taoism means source. So I didn't know
Mm.
that. I've been using woo woo for a long time. And a buddy of mine's a Taoist priest. He goes, well, woo means source. I said, I didn't know that, but it must be why I'm using it.
Because
Must
you
be
like
psychic or
it.
something. But I've people from over 14 countries, I think, so far, from all walks of life, lots of medical providers, lots of physicians, lots of surgeons, lots of nurses, lots of PAs and other medical providers, lots of healers, in the form of chiropractors
Yeah.
and massage therapists and whatever, housewives, moms, teachers, bunch of professors. I think we have 17 different specialties of professors that have taken the class. A Broadway star we have as a graduate, an orchestra conductor we have as a graduate. We have we have truck drivers, we have plumbers, we have carpenters, we have like all walks of life. And most of the people that come in don't believe they have any abilities,
Mm-hmm.
but you know as well as I that we're all born with the ability. It's a matter of developing and enhancing it. And they love how at the end of a weekend, everybody can do this stuff. At the end of the first hour and a half of class, they're doing it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, because everyone is naturally psychic. It's normal to be multisensory, and we are moving just like how you and I were talking before we went live, or not live, but before we started to record. That when you and I started to wake up right about the same time, like we probably already had ideas and feelings about it, but we hadn't had consistent, at least I hadn't had consistent experiences that didn't stop and start. Was right in the mid 90s, right around that time that you had that psychic feeling about your dear friend Patty.
Yeah.
And of course I read, of course, Anatomy of the Spirit. It's one of my favorite books in the whole world.
Uh-huh.
I also took a year-long course from someone who graduated from the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. So it's I think we're in one of those times again. I mean, that time is always there, but I think there's prominent moments where the level of consciousness is so expansive that a lot of people can have some profound awakening and permanent shifts to their consciousness that can, of course, help them to maneuver really well in their life, but also help others maneuver in their own life. And I just feel like we're in this sacred kind of moment again, even though it doesn't really look like it from our logical perspective. But it's, as you know, just like when someone comes to you who has a health challenge and they're scared and they're worn out and, devastated, and you help them to get into a different vibration and frequency so they can have a different perception and they start to see the beauty of what they've been going through. That's where we are right now collectively throughout the world, where people are going, what the heck is going on? Like, we're going backwards. What's going on? But
Yeah.
it's really an opening where people are able to stop and are kind of looking and wondering, and somehow their attention's been caught. And I think that's when spirit sneaks in, the universe gets out the headlights and goes, over here, over here. So it's an
I
exciting
agree.
time, I'm sure, for you
I
to
agree.
be here.
And people are more open, I find, to communicating with their deceased loved ones. I do a lot of that too. And university-based research shows that when people do that through a medium or through a friend that has intuitive abilities, that it really helps them with their grieving process. And so there are a lot of people that come to me and my graduates. I have a bunch of graduates that work with me too that do clients, and they want to talk to their deceased loved ones. People are way more open for that. So in my book, Angelic Attendants, what happens as we transition from this life into the next, it has diagrams in it about different positions that angels are in and the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets. And university-based research shows that 90% of people at the end of their lives see the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets, either in dreams or visions. 90%, Marie. And, we think grandma's hallucinating because of the morphine. Grandma's not hallucinating. She can actually see her grandfather who died 80 years ago. And so I find it interesting how people are way more willing to talk about this stuff, even the organized religious people, because my Catholic parish gives a copy to every family that comes in to plan a funeral or who has somebody at the end of their lives who's in the dying process. Many churches across the country of all denominations do the same thing. Many synagogues will get emails from them and they'll say, can we have some cases of books for a discounted price? Absolutely. Here you go. So we always send them to them. And then many hospice organizations can they utilize it as well, and they give a copy to their staff members, and they give a copy to their patients and their families and all of that. So I'm finding that people are way more willing to discuss this stuff. In particular, something comes to mind I'd love to share
Mhm.
that is political in nature, believe it or not. When George Herbert Walker Bush 41, died, the media, pretty much all of them said, well, he's back with his wife, Barbara, and his daughter, Robin. That was on the news in America, throughout all the news. All his family members said that. We're so happy that they're reunited. Jenna Bush, who's on NBC and is a news person on NBC, I saw her get interviewed before the funeral. And she said the thing that was so touching was he passed before Christmas, kind of near Christmas. And her 5-year-old daughter at the time, Jenna was crying, and her 5-year-old daughter came in and she said, Mommy, Grampy just wanted to be with Grammy in time to do the Christmas tree in heaven.
Exactly.
This is a 5-year-old saying this.
Mhm.
So I think there's all kinds of good information out there that people know that's what goes on, even if they don't talk about it. And more, they're wanting to find out if there's validation for that.
I think a lot of, and thank you so much for doing that. And if anybody watching this podcast wants a free copy of Julie's book, you can go to julieryangift.com
Gift.com.
and
Yeah.
leave your information, and you will get the book. And I think so many people are just tired of the grief process and tired of the not knowing and want to have a connection, and now are curious because we've have celebrity mediums on television shows, all day long sharing their experiences.
Mhm.
And so people want to be able to feel touched by their loved ones and not feel like they can never experience them again, because our relationships are meant to continue no matter what dimension we thrive in.
Well, and it's all throughout our literature. I mean, Plato's Republic, Shakespeare's King Lear. You got the Christmas Carol by Dickens, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and
Oh, that's
future.
true.
I
Yeah,
mean,
all these dead people can visit him to help him to
it's
be kind.
it's in all the religions. The angel appeared to Mary and said whatever. The Greek gods, all of it. It's in all of our human culture, in every culture, every religion. It's throughout it, and it's been my experience that as we've become more well educated and
Mhm.
proof based, we want to see proof for stuff. Well, we're talking to dead people and they're
All the
giving us
time.
information about their loved ones, and there's no way we could know that.
There's no way we could know. I also loved in your book, Angelic Attendants, you talk about how, one of the reasons why you see kind of a religious component with the angels, and just like that Pope that came to visit you to tell you that you were a medium, because that was your experience growing up,
Right.
and you have a love for the Catholic Church, where the windows or the building or something feeds you enough spiritually. The universe knows what we will take in,
Mhm.
knows what would make us happy. And so that's why it's presented to you in that way, which is quite lovely, by the way. And everyone will have their own unique experience. It doesn't have to look like your picture or my picture. We
Right.
all sense it in the way that will make us feel most comfortable and at home and at peace with our psychic abilities.
Well, and the way that we receive information is going to be predicated on how we learn. Are we a visual learner? Are we an auditory learner? Are we a kinesthetic learner? It's going to come in that way first. And then it's also going to be predicated on what's our human frame of reference.
Right.
I am used to the angel statues and the artwork and all of that in the Western world, and certainly in the Catholic Church where I was raised. Somebody that's growing up in an indigenous culture may see angel energy as just a blob of purple energy or something
Yeah, right.
totally different.
Or they might hear something like
That's right.
drums or a violin or a harp, or yeah, it's
Yeah.
just all
Or
very
have a feeling. People who are kinesthetic learners, they will say, oh, that's angel energy because it feels real light and kind of wispy. And then, oh no, that's spirit guide energy because it feels real dense. And that's somebody who lived a human life. And so their energy feels differently. So, and we all have the ability to experience all the different senses,
Right.
including what I call divine downloads, which we just know. We get information
The
deposited
knowingness,
into our heads,
I,
right?
I tell my students often, professional psychics, we don't care how we get the information. We just want to know.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter to us how it comes across into our consciousness. We just want to know. So, Julie, you also have a podcast.
I
And
do.
how can people find you and learn more about you and take your classes and all that good stuff?
Everything's at askjulieryan.com. Askjulieryan.com. All my links to my classes are there. My book links are there.
Right.
My
You have, I
show
think, like
links.
you have a book for cat about angelic energy for cats.
I have 4 children's books.
I
This is one for
love
dogs,
it.
and they're
So
darling.
beautiful. When I saw this on your website, I even printed it out. It's so pretty. It's just, oh. So cats and dogs and a book for children.
Kids
They're all for children.
and kids and fear, for
Mm,
truth. For
mm.
kids, there's a 4-book series, and then Angelic Attendants, which anybody again that wants a free copy, digital and
Yes.
audiobook, julieryangift.com will
The
send one to
2 minute
you.
rule looks really cool.
2-minute rule,
Yeah.
and then also angel messages for your life's journey. So there's 7 of
That's
them.
amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much for all of your hard work and your devotion and your dedication to the business world, but in particular to your business world and the psychic realm. We are grateful for your devotion and your time and your love of humanity and your desire to help us all to improve and reward ourselves through our connection with, all that exists with God. So thank you so
Yeah.
much. We really appreciate all the work you do in the world, and hopefully people will take some classes from you. I know they can learn a lot from you. I'm sure they will and have. So that's exciting too.
Well, all the same, right back at you, babe. Thank you for those kind words, and I'm just sending them all right back to you
Thank
as
you.
well. I feel like you're my sister from another
I
mister.
know. I can't wait till we have that lunch date wherever we decide to do it in the world. That will be very exciting.
I
I'm looking
agree.
forward to hugging you in person and thanking you for being on the planet.
Well, that would be my honor.
So thank you so much, Julie, for being here. And thank you everyone for listening to the podcast. We wish you many, many joyful blessings. Bye-bye for now.